Hey everyone, thanks for coming back. In this video we're going to take a look at this budget offering from the Kershaw line. This is the Induction, and it's an in-house model with the hawk lock from Grant to Gavin Hawk. And then I've just started shipping today from dealers, so good time to get to the video. So we'll go through the specs, overall impressions, and details. Couple of kind of caveats here to start off with. I primarily collect or purchase knives in the kind of the higher tier of production knives. Obviously this one being a budget knife, $40 street price or direct from dealers, so pretty affordable. And at that price point, it's obviously not going to be a perfect knife. The kind of premise behind Kershaw is that it's budget, entry level, kind of for your everyday guy. Get him a cool knife with cool features and decent materials, decent fit and finish, but its concessions are being made for the Kershaw line. Do I wish this was a ZT? Absolutely. I wish every Kershaw was a ZT. And talking to the guys at Kershaw Kai ZT, they kind of wish the same as well. They would love to make more ZTs, but they've got customers, they've got stores, they've got Walmart, and they have to make knives that they can sell in those retailers, and so obviously corners have to be cut. So it's an awesome knife for 40 bucks. If this was a $200 knife, then we would have some problems. But anyways, got to put that out there because I don't think that people really get that or don't really keep in mind the price point. And just like me, a lot of you wish this was a ZT, but again, that's not really the point of this knife. So now that I've given a disclaimer, I guess, because it seems like I have to on these videos, let's get into it. So in terms of specs, we'll start with that. I'll grab the Para 2 here, and we do have some rather large size differences. So the blade on this one is 3.1, handle length is 4.4, total open length is about 7.6, and it does weigh in right around 3.74 ounces on my scale. Here we are with the Para 2, and looking at some of the size differences, some of the thickness. As you can see, we do have some thickness difference there. And this one does weigh in, as I already mentioned, at 3.4 ounces. So it does run on bearings, and it does have the hawk lock, which is the reason I was really excited for this knife. Kershaw's had knives with the hawk lock before, like the Kershaw Ram. That one's discontinued. It looked like a really good knife. It used the Sandvik steel. Unfortunately, they no longer make them. I'd happily see them bring it back. And the ZT that once used, or the one that they produced that used the hawk lock, was the ZT Mud. And again, that one has been discontinued for quite some time. Can you find those two knives on secondary? Possibly, if you look hard enough. You're definitely going to pay more than they initially were, but you might be able to find them. So yeah. Alright, overall impressions. I really do like this knife. Again, for 40 bucks, it's very cool. It's a very fun mechanism. It has a different feel, and it has really, really good action. So the way that the flipper tab is set up in front of the detent, as you can see, in front of the pivot, as you can see, generates a really cool action. And then the hawk lock has a different feel. It's a completely different mechanism than your standard detent. And in an Instagram post, Gavin Hawk, and I'll put the link to the profile and possibly the post itself in the description box below, but he kind of showed the toggle mechanism of the hawk lock, which is really, really interesting. So for me, this was essentially dipping my toe into a knife with the hawk lock. I mean, I bought it just for that, just for the action. Not really too concerned with the overall fit and finish and performance. That's what I wanted. So the action is fantastic, and the hawk lock is easy to use. A lot of people want to know, hey, is it like an access lock? And the answer is kind of, but not really. As you can see, it has the toggle mechanism to overcome right here. So if I wasn't underneath the camera and I get enough force, I can, kind of wrist flick it closed while holding down the mechanism, but you can't hold it down and shake it out because it's got that mechanism to overcome. So with enough force you can get it to close while pulling down the locking mechanism, but you can't flick it open. So it doesn't really function like an access lock in the way that I think some of you guys are curious. It's different. So yeah, very, very cool. It's an interesting, I don't know, it's innovative. I mean, I love what the Grant and Gavin Hawk do. They do some really cool things, and this lock mechanism is very neat. Aside from Kai encompassing Kershaw and ZT, the Hawk lock can be found on some of Hawk knives, production knives that they offer. They're typically done in collaboration with Millet Knives, but they do have a, I don't know, kind of a mid-tech mud. That one I think is like 400 to 500, and then they just released a new model called the Orbit, which is a collaboration with Serge Pachenko. That one was like 500 to 550 or something, and it encompassed the same type of mechanism and system, obviously on a much higher, more expensive knife or higher end knife. So, again, if you just want to try it out, I think $40 is totally worth it, at least for me. So in terms of some additional materials, we do have aluminum handles with a hard anodize. This center section here is a glass-filled nylon insert of sorts. Traction is low to medium-low. Doesn't offer a ton of traction, nor does kind of the frame of the knife. It's very ergonomic and it's super comfortable with the way that they have like this finger choil. Even in my extra large hands, it's very, very comfortable, but it's not like a tactical knife. Although the funny thing is that, by and large, I'm sure Kershaw knives see a lot more use and abuse than their ZT counterparts that are much more expensive, because you have guys from a completely different demographic that'll go into Walmart or Cabela's, wherever they sell them, and they'll pick up one of these knives and they'll just beat the crap out of them. So, I'm sure these knives perform much, much better than we as knife enthusiasts anticipate. Because people do really, really dumb things with knives that really weren't designed for. So, alright, let's take a look at it in a little bit of detail there. There's the Hawk lock. It could use a little bit more traction, to be honest. A little bit more aggressive texturing would be good, just to make sure that it's super. I mean, yeah, a little bit more texturing would be good. So we do have Torx screws, lanyard hole. You have I believe this is a stainless steel pocket clip for left and right hand tip up carry. Works really well. Again, there's nothing wrong with the spring clip. It carries in jeans perfectly. So there are standoffs, primarily oak construction. And then let's talk about one other thing. So this lock mechanism uses, I believe, 2 springs that are on guide rods. If I recall how it was explained to me, but I have not taken this knife apart yet. And so that the springs, obviously, spring that back open, and that weird noise was actually my nail. I was trying to pull it back. Anyways, so the spring obviously kicks it back into the locked position as it should, but those springs on the guide rods, you can actually hear them if you shake the knife. So if you get one of these and you hear that kind of rattle noise, nothing's broken, nothing's loose, it's the compression springs on the guide rods, and obviously the springs make a little bit of noise. So when I was talking to Thomas and the Kai crew, they said on some of the prototypes they opened them, they tried putting a little bit of like grease in there to make them more quiet, and they did, but it wasn't beneficial to the action at all. So again, it's a $40 knife. So hopefully that doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother me, because I view this knife as just a cool way to try out this mechanism. So jimping on the flipper tab, blade steel is 8CR13 MOV. Again, it's steel that they do well in China. It holds a decent edge. It sharpens fairly easy. It strops really well, but it's not a high performance steel. You do have black oxide here on the swedge and the primary bevel. and then they sat in the flats. So nice contrast. I mean, overall the knife has some great lines. It's a very cool, very attractive design, and you know, again, even guys who buy budget knives want something that's cool and interesting. So as far as the lockup, a little bit of side to side. I did tighten the pivot a couple days ago, and it was very, very solid. Removed all of the, you know, the wiggle. But then as I played with it, obviously the pivot has loosened up a bit, and the action is a little bit better when the pivot's a little bit looser. So again, it's a $40 knife. Tiny bit of up and down play too. No jimping on the spine, fairly thin blade stock. This thing slices really well. Went through a number of food packages with it. No worries at all. So made in China. There's the model number, and it does have the Hawk Lock and Kai USA. Anyways, so I like it. Again, it's fun. For me, it's kind of a novelty. But again, if you're going to get this as your primary carry, you would be very, very well suited on this knife. And if you want something that's similar but has, you know, it's much better built, you can track down a ZT Mud. You can try to track down one of the Kershaw Rams. You can track down one of the Hawk Mud knives directly from, you know, Hawk Knives. Or you can try to track down the Orbit that just came out. So a lot of different options, but this is a great place to start. Try it out, see if you like it. I love that you don't have to put your finger in front of the blade to disengage it. And for perhaps some new knife people, they might see that as a safety benefit. To me, it's just kind of fun. So anyways, I might do a takedown of this knife. I'm primarily not interested in takedown videos, but with like the ZT0055 and then this one, they're unique mechanisms, and I think they're worth exploring. And if I can't put this one back together properly, then I don't know, I could just buy a new one for 40 bucks. So terrible thing to say, but completely honest if I have to. So alright, we'll leave it there. Yeah, that should wrap it up. So hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at this video. Hopefully I gave you guys kind of an idea of what to expect, or maybe the right way to approach it. It does come in just a, I don't know, clamshell-ish type of packaging. The Induction, you can see the specs and stuff on the back, but obviously this was designed for retail, you know, to be hung and sold at just kind of normal stores. So this would actually be a really cool knife to get for a you know, a non-knife friend too. I think this is something they would probably find really interesting, or hopefully. So great gateway drug right here. Anyways, that is finally it. So thanks so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment if you didn't like it. And you can always follow me on Instagram for more daily content. See ya.